Oh. Oh, I needed to look and I didn't see it. So we will call to order the February Stockbridge Planning Commission. First order of business is the minutes from January 22nd. Have them electronically or in your packets if you got one. I already saw a couple of edits noted in there. That's cool.
That shouldn't have shown up before. I did, sorry about that.
Any additions, modifications, deletions? Hearing none, a motion to approve as submitted.
Make a motion.
Thank you. Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moving on to the agenda, plan reviews 196 Main Street.
You want me to stay in there? Does it matter for the recording?
I don't know, doesn't it?
No, that actually is a superfluous mic. It does just the interior.
I mean, you look cool in front of my.
When I get home.
Stephanie, see you in here.
This one works.
196 Main Street, seen it a number of times, so I'm not going into depth explanation. Did speak with both Stephanie and Michelle for the meeting, and I won't put words in your mouth, but I think they both would think that it's in a position for recommendation of final approval. There is one item to be discussed in Michelle's letter. And it's item 2 on page 3, and it is a change
This
since
is
we
the
were here.
PPS letter dated February 20th.
Yes. This is something that we hadn't discussed before, and I wasn't aware of it the last time I was here. As we're looking at that plan, as it comes into focus, the left-hand property line.
Sorry, number 2 on page 2?
Page number,
On Michelle's page 3, comment number 2
Got it.
right,
regarding switches. Along the left property line adjacent to the residential home, there was a number of ash trees there. When we did the survey, they were still living, so they were shown on our plan. I counted them as to be preserved, and that's how we came up with our tree replacement calculations. That property owner has since cut down the ash trees because they've died. So about 9 of them were on this property slightly. They're almost right on the property line. I count 9 that are on this property and a few more that are exclusively on their property. So that throws off our tree replacement calculation. If you treated those trees as if they were healthy and living, it would require a total of 42 replacement trees. We were already showing 16 on our plan. But since we didn't cut them down and they were dead, and they're still laying there actually, so you can verify that they're ash trees. The proposal would be to just replace those tree per tree, and we'll replace them. No, we didn't cut them down. So the end result would be what we're asking you to consider, the township to consider, is a total of 25 replacement trees, which would be replacing those 9 trees that were on our property. I'm not counting the ones that on their property because they don't have anything to do with us. And I don't know if that's a waiver or not, to be honest, because the trees were dead. So we are going to go in front of the board Wednesday morning, I guess, to discuss that. Tuesday morning to discuss that. So we're at board's mercy. I mean, if they don't agree with that, we have to plant all of the replacement trees. That's what we'll have to do. But that's the relief we would be requesting. To just plant the 9 trees in addition to the replacement trees that were already shown on the plan, to replace the 9 that were taken down on our.
are you gonna replace them as a hedgerow near where they were, or are you thinking to spread them out, or?
Yeah, I'm thinking we'll put them back near where they were, just off the property line. There's a significant amount of other plantings in that area as well, but these would just add to that. We won't plant ash.
What would you think?
They would definitely be shade trees. But I don't know, we haven't chosen. Yeah, there's a lot of variety already on, just have to look at the entire planting schedule and pick something that's, we don't have too many of any species. So we would abide by that as well. It would be something like that, shade tree.
So Rick, I'm looking at the aerial right now. So are these the trees that go close to the pool of the adjacent property owner, or the ones that are along sort of the
It's really from the back corner of their property.
Of the daycare property
No,
or the residential property?
residential property.
Okay.
Steve, Mike's showing you up.
Okay.
right there? Yeah.
It's those trees right there. In fact, I labeled them removed.
So the question is whether you're replacing the number of trees or the caliber of trees is really what it's now.
Just for those. All the other ones you're replacing.
All the others, we already had that
Right.
calculation. In fact, we had 2 additional replacement trees. Even on the
Oh, you're
I'm
meeting
fine.
with the supervisor. I don't know that we. need
And
to
I'm
get-
fine, with it, yeah.
And as far as the placement goes, I would just be considerate of the neighbors, in terms of they've got a swimming pool, like putting it to the side of the swimming pool, opposed to giving them some privacy would be considerate.
Yes, absolutely. And like I said, there is a considerable amount of buffer plantings between our property and their. So. Shrubs, ornamental trees. Evergreens and shade trees already.
Is there anything else new in the letter? Michelle?
No, so, the next one, we talked about some shrubs that have to be replaced. But that's, Rick added some shrubs in there on the invasive species list, so we asked him to replace them, and I'm sure there's no
That
problem
was a
with that.
recommendation of the county as well, and we will comply with that. I'm surprised that the Wanamus is on that list, which is a burning bush.
Yeah, it is.
It's kind of new.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like them.
yeah.
Several of them.
Yeah, I do too. But I'm not sure what makes them invasive. I mean, they spread.
Yeah, I see.
Never seen you growing into one.
Well, they've gotten smarter over the last few years, and now they're starting to spread into the woods.
Yeah, you can think what's behind my.
Interesting.
Nothing else new.
Is there anything that's not will comply then?
Now, everything else.
Question, comments? Before we go to a vote, any questions or comments from the audience? All right, then, with the previous discussion regarding the buffering and, I think we can leave that to the supervisors as to how and how many they want to, compel them to put in. Motion to approve subject to the CCAS. I'm sorry, before we do that, Stephanie, is there anything in traffic that we haven't already covered, anything that's new or not will comply?
No, there's not. And PennDOT has issued their review. There's nothing in that letter that is concerning in any way. So as long as everything in our letter dated January 31st is a will comply, then I have no other comments.
I got a little bit ahead of myself there. So subject to both the traffic and the CCAS letter, motion to final approval.
Make that motion.
Thank you. Second, sorry, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, let us, you'll keep staff advised of what the supervisor say. Okay,
All right, thank you.
all right. It's still you.
Still me, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, Susan Rice pulled that off last month, so why not do this month?
So, this property is the county property. It's located at 862 Harleysville Pike. And it's right across the street from Blue Con Road. You may recognize it as the home that was hit by a car all the time.
It's more and more.
We're nuts. So with me tonight is Don Carney, the owner, as well as Margie.
Truck wants up.
That's not why they're doing this. They've been on the property for 30 years now, and the plan is to subdivide so they can build a first floor plan that's more suitable in retirement. And the plan is for their daughter to live in the farmhouse, correct? If she wants to, yeah, okay. So it's a pretty straightforward subdivision. We exceed the minimum requirements for the R1A. There is for public sewer and public water out there, so it is proposed to have public facilities. And we are proposing to share the existing driveway. If you go to the next sheet, Mike, it shows the layout. And that, I'm sorry, that sheet. So that house is the actual footprint that they want to build and the orientation that they want to build. That's after a lot of thought as to how they would live in that house and where they wanted to look out the various windows and things like that. But as you can see, we're not proposing a new access out to 113. Proposing to share the existing driveway, which would require an easement. But it, I think, makes sense here, knowing the capacity of 113 and the traffic. Probably the threshold issues that bear discussion are road improvements and sidewalk. We're asking for deferral in conjunction with this subdivision for those improvements. I think it's warranted by what they're proposing. This was a property that was involved, or I should say impacted by the golf course. So when the golf course was built, like our golf club was built and all the homes around there, some of the improvements with regard to the road, additional auxiliary lanes and stormwater improvements were done. And they acquired some right of way from the Carneys in order to do that. So those issues were addressed when the golf course community was built. I know that Claire in her letter recommended that sidewalks be constructed, but if they're familiar with the property, that is almost an impossibility at this point. There's a fairly significant embankment from 113 up into the property. You can see the contours where the right of way is. And then you've got the farmhouse as well. So I'm not sure that that's a feasible endeavor for this particular property. So that's the basis for the deferral request for the sidewalk.
Now CKS is suggesting do the grading, but not the sidewalks. From what you're saying, it sounds like that would be.
That embankment is probably 8 feet. It's a lot of grading that would have to be done in order to.
I agree that if we do it within the right of way, it would be very difficult to do. I'm suggesting that perhaps a sidewalk easement, if that is okay with you, be shown on the plan so that if it is done at some time in the future, a more appropriate place to place the sidewalk, if you would consider that outside of the right of way.
We can talk about that. We don't have to make that decision tonight, but I think we can talk about that. So I think there's possibilities maybe to resolve that. What I would like to do is revise the plans to address the comments. Most of the other comments, I think, are typical comments. Stephanie in her letter is asking to either produce a PennDOT permit for the driveway or obtain a permit for the driveway. Definitely is no permit. That doesn't mean it was built without a permit. It's just been there for so long that that permit's no longer available. I've had that same situation in many other projects. It still would be a minimum use driveway, so I actually don't think it's too much of a burden to obtain a new permit for that. So I think that's the route we would go for PennDOT.
I would just add that, to confirm site distance. Right, for that minimum use permit, and, yes, it should be fairly, I think, straightforward.
Yeah, for minimum use, PennDOT will they actually visit the site and ensure that its site distance already there before they even issue the permit, so we can't propose it has to already be there.
So Rick, if I do the math, it looks like a 3-acre parcel and a 4-acre parcel, but if I'm looking at the aerial, that property looks larger than 7 acres.
There's a fair amount of right of way in the street.
Yeah. That outline, actually, we go across and we're on the other side of the street. And then it comes back down and then goes down like right there, yeah.
Right off the page is the area of the right of way. There's like, I see a leader there. If you zoom it up a little bit, Mike. Pan it upward, the other direction. There you go. The area should be right there. Yeah, so it's about 6.67 acres in the right.
And that wasn't acquired by PennDOT? I think was there a relocation?
There was
And the-
additional right of way acquired. There's a whole bunch of rights of way on this. You can see it says ultimate right of way, C note 5, legal right of way, C note 6.
Mhm.
So we do note all those individual takings. Some were easements and some was right of way. So the intent is to dedicate
Good, okay,
any. So
okay.
either way, I think we're coming.
I got a couple of thoughts here too. In front of the house, the existing farmhouse, it appears the shoulder goes from 5 foot maybe down to 2 foot. And if we're not gonna put sidewalks or anything in, if we could extend the larger portion of that shoulder.
I think the reason it's not there now is because of the proximity to the farmhouse. I mean, it's really.
Well, it
close
goes
to there.
halfway to the farmhouse
Yeah.
from what I can tell.
Right, and then there's, I think an embankment between the shoulder and the house too, right? It goes up, and it's a little. I'm not sure you can do that without undermining the house itself. I don't think there's a reason it wasn't done already.
Right, and I don't know what that is.
Because there was extensive improvement done.
I just with biking shoulders and that kind of thing. A 5 foot shoulder is just nicer to bike on that.
Living in Ladder Rock, and I've said it at public meetings, I'm definitely a proponent of walking trails in the rock area.
Right.
It's a endeavor, but,
I guess.
Well, then you're not really talking about a sidewalk permit. You're saying you can't get sidewalks in. And I don't think that's,
right.
we're gonna need sidewalks on one.
Yeah, but I think that to get sidewalks through this area, I mean, that's gonna be a much larger.
But it's gonna be a big problem later if it's deferred. You're just moving the problems. The problem's not gonna get easier.
That's true. It's not gonna get easier, but it's not even identifiable, in my opinion, today. It's gotta be looked at much larger scope, I think, for this project. In other words, just putting it where you would normally put sidewalk, I mean, you can't do that because the farmhouse is there. You've got the grading, so it likely will be somewhere else.
Well, the
I don't know
grading is
where
not a
that-
problem in front of the existing farmhouse. It's proximity that might be the issue there, but the embankment is really where the new parcel is gonna be, correct?
Correct.
Definitely a bigger bang.
My thought is that this is this sidewalk will be a greater effort than most sidewalks to get this in here. That's gonna make it less likely to ever happen if it doesn't happen now. It's not gonna make it, we're not just deferring it to do it later. We're
Yeah, but
losing an
I-
opportunity to get that section in.
I think you, in my opinion, you could look at it in terms of running, proposing a single home here too. So there's some limit to what a single home can do as compared to a development. So I think that's part of the equation there.
This is R1A, right?
It is.
So that one parcel is still subdividable.
Yeah, I think you could get additional lots here.
And I was gonna say, that's the other part of my thing is, I'm not sure why we're doing a shared driveway. I heard your explanation, Rick. But it just complicates things when creating easements versus just having its own driveway.
So generally, that's the recommendation, I would say, for a road like 113. Yeah, because you want to limit the amount of additional driveways, particularly on 113. I mean, I guess an example of that is the zoning ordinance for village commercial, which just isn't an RO. They all require you to at least examine that potential. So this would be a similar situation, even though it's an R1A. I don't think you would want another.
And then if they were to subdivide it more in the future, you just continue expanding that shared driveway?
You might
I
have
think
to
if you
then
s-
put in a new driveway.
I think if you subdivide it in the future, then we're back at square one. We're back here in front of you, all the same issues. Come up.
I think with 113 said you probably need a shared driveway as closely aligned to Luton as possible would be
Right.
the.
Okay, I'll buy that.
Well, I'd like to, maybe not, this isn't the right time, but I'd like to continue our conversation from the January meeting where we talked about deferring sidewalks.
That
Because
was coming
I've
up.
pondered it since then, and I think that we really should start getting these sidewalks built. Because we want sidewalks on these roads, it's important to the township, it's a priority, and somebody has to. You know, you can't wait until every project on that whole stretch of highways is developed and then say, okay, now everybody build your sidewalks.
I don't disagree
I
with
think
that.
you're less likely to ever get sidewalks if you wait.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but you want to be first though. I hear what you're saying.
I think at a minimum, the CKS letter recommends getting the grading done. I think the grading on, by the farmhouse is pretty close and it won't take a ton to get that graded. If anything, it'll probably just expose some of that front porch. And I think to Julia's point, might as well take on that embankment. I mean, I think you got enough room to do the tapering that you need, so you'll run and then you'll have a slope and you can taper that slope as much. So I think we should at least get the grading done now.
Manus, can I make a comment?
Sure.
So in front of the farmhouse, there's a bituminous curb. And I agree that's not 5 feet of a shoulder. So everybody should remember that 113 is a designated bike route in the Monco plan. So that is going to come up in discussions whenever we're looking along 113. There are new requirements for bike lanes, especially on higher speed roads, higher volume roads, buffered bike lanes. There's a number of new criteria that is now out from the AASHTO guidance. But at a minimum, a 5-foot shoulder can be a share the road condition and be considered a bike lane. That being said, this does not have that in the area of the bituminous curb, although I do think the grading in front of the house is doable to either provide that or in the future or now or whatever the case may be, some type of a sidewalk path at that location. Further down where the shared access would be, you'll notice there is no curb. The shoulder is a bit wider, could be considered a share the road bike lane condition. But there is also a drainage swale that's running along 113 in that area. So just introducing grading for a sidewalk without the buffer from the road per se, or the curb line or something, it is hard to know what is that going to look like and what drainage considerations are going to need to be accounted for there. I look at this and go, if I had my wish, maybe that sidewalk or trail is up along the top of the embankment away from the road with a greater buffer. You're not affecting the drainage in that area at that point. It's still going to do what it does today, and you're putting the users of that section a little further away from 113.
That's why I asked for an easement, Stephanie, outside of the right of way.
Right.
To put that.
So, and that's where I think you know, every situation can be a little bit different and the circumstances are a little different. And I would agree with Michelle in this case that that's a more likely scenario, understanding where we are on 113, what it looks like down 113 in both directions. We're a little away from the village, obviously, of Leterack. You know, so I think it is a bit of a challenge in this early stage to just say, yes, we need to put sidewalk, you know, adjacent to the road or with a buffer, and grade it out so that that works, because there's a good chance it may or may not work. But I like the idea of what Michelle is
Stephanie,
saying.
so I'm just gonna cut you off a little bit, sorry. So fair points. I want to try to see if we can, you know, in fairness to the applicant, we kind of have to decide what we think is a priority. So like, I'm hearing Julia say, do it when the opportunity presents itself. And therefore, okay, what do we want to do? The house is a limiting factor. It is where it is, right? So if we wanted to try to do something now, we could do a sidewalk or we could do an extended shoulder for the bike lane. There's not enough room to do both. Is that reasonably accurate statement?
It would be very tight, I think, based on what I see. You know, it would have to be looked at if you wanted both. But it might be pretty tight.
A 5-foot shoulder and a 5-foot sidewalk in front of the White House.
That's on the porch.
If you're all close.
Yeah.
Darn close.
So my point is you could have one or the other, but you probably can't have both. And which do we think is the higher need?
I like Steph's argument that it's a bike.
Right.
Designated bike highway or whatever you want to call it.
It is. It's a designated bike route in the Bike Montco plan. So we always want to consider those routes, you know, when we're looking at improvements along the frontage. I think certainly with potential projects that are closer to the village, things that are happening maybe up in that direction, the bike lane may tie into that additional path network, things like that.
So I guess what I'm trying to just decipher is, if I look at the aerial, the likelihood of extending sidewalk from Lead Rock Village on the, call it north or east side of 113, all the way down to Lucan, to me feels unlikely. But we have an opportunity right in front of us to extend the shoulder and create a bit of a bike lane to create some safety for people riding their bikes. I wouldn't ride my bike on 130. I mean, you couldn't pay me to do that, but you know, God bless them. But if that's the designation, is this our chance to get that wider shoulder and put that in? Or, you know, Michelle, if you think the best thing to do is get the easement and figure it out later, I'm willing to do that, but I've got a voice at the side of me saying, hey, these are presenting themselves. This is our chance to do it because it's going to get harder over time, which is a completely fair statement.
Well, I think the bike lane is a better idea because it's gonna use more than 100 feet sidewalk and it goes nowhere.
And people, of course, can walk in the bike lane. I don't think I would,
No,
but I have found myself walking along Route 113. It does happen.
Right.
And the safer we can make it, the better. Maybe we could, if it's unlikely there's going to be a sidewalk in the future, maybe we can get a wider bike area. So that if people are walking there, they've got that little bit of extra protection to be away from the speeding traffic.
I can add that the walkable Leterack study did look at obviously the village core, the village gateway, and then the surrounding areas. And this location did not spell out sidewalk in front of all of these properties, but it does designate this as a share the road bike lane section
This,
of
of course,
the road.
This, of course, is if the owner doesn't want to consider shifting his house back.
That might be easier.
So, I mean, it sounds like trying to get a little bit of a wider shoulder to create a bike lane might be the more attainable and logical step forward. Thoughts on that?
Yes.
We'll look into it. I mean,
Okay.
I there's a little bit of investigation that has to be done. don't know exactly what that means with PennDOT either. They're gonna have a lot to say about that. And I want to talk about that with the partners as well. We've got some other things to take care of, so I think we'll
We'll be
do
back.
that. Come back, hopefully get some more information. I did want to mention one thing in Michelle's letter, I think it's Michelle's letter about the existing well. The house actually is on public water today, but the well is still being used for irrigation of gardens. There's gardens in the back, so they want to keep that active. It's not interconnected with the water authority system in any way, so there's no risk of that happening, but does give them an avenue for gardens. And he's got a fairly extensive garden.
We've got hydrant pumps and stuff.
He's got a lot of garlic growing and
So you'll, oh, I see where the water, I couldn't tell where, if that was new water or existing water, I guess, on there. And the word old well was just a age thing.
probably a survey. So.
No, okay.
So I don't know. I don't think I have anything else to discuss tonight, but if you have any questions.
I just had a question. You talked about the size of the lots. When you sized out the new lots, are they both capable of being re-subdivided if the owner wants to do that in the future?
You know, it's likely, I mean, the honest answer is likely these owners are going to be related anyway. So if they really wanted to subdivide it in the future, they could probably put the two back together and maximize their yield if they wanted to. Again, any future subdivision, we'd have to go through the exact same process and have.
But without zoning relief, Rick, it's R1A, the most you can get out of this is 3 lots, right? Isn't your gross?
Yeah, I think from an area standpoint,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we didn't examine it that way. I mean, they just wanted one additional lot, basically down the middle, so they could build one home. So that was
If
the
it's gonna
goal.
be all family in the area, you might just want to consider going ahead and subdividing it now into 3 lots and just leaving one. In case they ever want to do something in the future, so the 3 makes sense together.
I think,
But that's, if you're not considering that, that's fine.
yeah, I mean, and that, I think that does complicate it. I mean, we can certainly talk about that, but then the question, you know, comes to, you really want 3 lots on or more on one shared driveway that, you know, there's other issues, I think, that would come out of that we maybe don't want to deal with at this point, because that's not really what they.
You saw the comments in the letter about street trees. Obviously, that's something that we would be expecting along 113.
The street trees are proposed, you mean the variety, the number?
Oh, no, just that Michelle called out the street trees and, you know, I know that's typically a waiver item, but I think on 113.
No, we're
They're
showing it on the
proposing
plan,
that, right,
actually,
yeah,
so
they're pro-
we're not asking for a waiver.
Okay.
The only thing they're asking waiver for is to count. There are some existing trees that we want to count.
Right,
Yeah, well, that's, I guess I was looking at, you know, item, you know, what is this, 8B
right.
and the waiver, and I was trying to just understand what we were getting at, like,
Yeah.
hey, let's make sure we got the street trees covered.
Right,
Yeah.
they are shown on the plan. We're not
Okay.
looking to reduce the total number. Few existing trees that just count. One of them's like a 36 oak tree or something like that. Big tree.
Was it measured for?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Was it measured for?
Have your person go up there and check.
All right, so you'll take a look at the road widening, bike lane. I think that makes more sense than a sidewalk. Then you'll come back to your thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right.
All right.
Any questions from you and
I
I?
just wanted to bring it up again. The road drops off 3 to 4 foot.
On the south side,
Right hand side.
right, okay.
Oh, there's a culvert there.
Oh,
Yes, yeah, even a further up, you see. Yeah, that actually is a fairly, another point, there's a drainage area there, culvert that drains water under the road into the storm sewer, so I think it actually goes across and then out to Lugon, right? At that
I don't think, I think it goes through the dock.
That even, an additional complication that we'll have to look at in terms of getting some sort of, bike way through there. Not simple.
Heading down towards the
Skip back.
You can
Yeah,
go down
yeah, so
to
there's-
get back, yeah.
between you and there's like a rancher or something?
Yeah, it's right in there, right
Yeah.
past,
what is that right
Yeah, what is that?
that's a sewer.
That's the evaporating pump.
Oh,
No. Back on the right.
Right there.
Bring it down towards the house more. Right there, that brown area spot.
Yeah.
That's a culvert there. You get a lot of rain, that whole field can fill up with. That happens.
If we're looking at him to extend it to a 5-foot shoulder, would you put a concrete curb in? Get rid of the asphalt curbing and then I guess it depends on where this culvert ends up. It almost looks like it might be just short of it.
Yeah.
Well,
Look into it.
I don't think we can figure it out tonight, so let's. We'll look into it, come back with, what we think we can do. Or not.
Cause it looks like you're already at 5 foot just past the house heading up towards the existing driveway. right?
Yeah. Going the other direction, that is short.
Okay, we'll give you time. No.
Right.
All right,
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
all right, so that's it for plan reviews. Do we have anything from the county? Claire?
We did send him. This way, if it's related to the village district, we did not do official review the village district. But we did implement unofficially tonight. Be meeting on that. Next week is following this with Michelle.
Mike, you had a couple of things last month. Do you have anything more with you?
No, there's nothing more for today, but Stephanie has her hand up.
Oh, hey, Steph.
I do have my hand up. And I wanted to just touch base with the group. Joe is a member of the Trail and Sidewalk Committee. Our last meeting, Joe, we talked about coming back to the Planning Commission and asking for any interest from any of the members to be the second Planning Commission member on the Trail and Sidewalk Committee. For those of you that may not be aware, we meet kind of every other month or as needed. And we have 2 members from the board, 2 members from the planning, or we had 2 members from the Planning Commission. John was one of them. 2 members from the park board. Mike and I, we meet with the committee. So we have a vacant seat that has been vacant now since John left, and are interested in finding out if someone is interested or willing to be a participant on that Trail and Sidewalk Committee moving forward, because that's the place where we've developed kind of the township wide mapping, the proposed projects, where we think sidewalk is going to be, where we think trail is going to be. A lot of projects have come out of it. There's a project prioritization discussions and things move forward to grants. And so it's a pretty it's been a great help for the township to prioritize these types of projects and move things forward and then bring them back to the board for review. So we generally meet on Monday nights towards the end of the month. That seems to work for everybody's schedules. And it's like I said, sometimes it's every other month and sometimes it's not quite as frequently. Depends on our agenda items and things that we need to discuss.
So why doesn't anybody who's interested send me an email in the next couple of days? If there's more than one, we'll have a conversation and figure it out. And if there's only one, if there isn't one, then I'll start calling everybody until we get you a second person. That sounds fair?
Yep, that sounds great.
All right.
Thank you very
Alright.
much.
For full transparency, I will tell you, I'll throw my name in the hat. I've done it now, I will.
I thought you were already on. I thought you were the second person.
No.
No,
Joe?
yeah, Kennedy, on was the other
But I
one.
thought it was, oh, so you and Joe.
Yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. No, but I'll email you formally. Yep.
Just something from the Regional Planning Commission meeting last night. We should expect probably around August, maybe the summer meeting, or maybe September, for the county to come in. Eric, Cheryl, thank you. It's come the time for the 10-year update of the strategic plan. So just timing wise, that's probably when we can expect that.
The whole process that we've been through before.
Yep.
Okay. Any other business? Hearing none, a motion to adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry.
Any public comment? I was gonna say.
You held your cup up, Betty. People didn't know if that was.
I didn't know if you had to say something.
Speak now. Or hold your face.
All right, got a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Second. Thank you all. Thanks, everybody. You guys know what's next, so see you in a bit.